Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our eWash Wellness webinar, Surviving the Holidays, featuring one of our very own MRC volunteer experts, Melissa Laundrie. Melissa is a licensed professional counselor and certified EMDR therapist who inspires the pursuit of wellness. She has a passion for aiding individuals in overcoming trauma, depression, anxiety, and addiction. Her therapeutic approach is person-centered and focused on empowering individuals to direct their own path to wellness. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. First, let me just say thank you for taking time on your busy schedules to really join us for this session. I know as employees of the Office of Emergency Preparedness, you're no stranger to handling really high stress and high pressure situations. The work that you guys do is critical, and I imagine that it can also be very stressful, especially as we enter this holiday season. So the holidays really add another complex layer to our lives between balancing increased personal obligations, financial pressures, balancing your professional obligations. It's no wonder that this time of year can feel really overwhelming to all of us. So today we're going to focus on practical strategies that can help you navigate the holiday season with less stress and more ease, whether that's managing expectations or prioritizing self-care, or using just simple breathing techniques that you can use anywhere at any time. I hope you'll leave this with tools that you can use immediately and not just during the holidays, but really whenever life gets hectic or you just need to kind of catch your bearings and stay a little bit more grounded in your day-to-day life. So I'm just going to start off with a quick question, and I would like to know, what's your biggest holiday stressor? So is it work? Is it family, finances, time? If you can put that in the chat, and then we'll kind of see where everybody stands as far as what their biggest stressor is. And if it's not one of those that I mentioned, feel free to put whatever comes to mind. It's a lot of people saying time and family, logistics, traveling. Yeah, that eats up a lot of time and can be really stressful. Or having like changes or transitions in our life, and maybe it looks differently than previous holidays. It can also add another level of stress. Yeah, all of the above. Yeah, sometimes it is more than just one thing. And having lots of responsibilities, having a lot of people come to the table, those are all really valid stress to have during this time. And I think like we'll talk a little bit more about it, but um, it is like these expectations that we have. Like we want to be people who give like really good gifts, and sometimes that's super hard for adults who buy things that they want at any point in time. Well, not a lot of us are like putting it off till Christmas to buy things for ourselves, so that makes gift giving a little bit harder. And then there's also the financial strain of all of that. But yeah, expectations are a huge part and piece of the stress that we experience, and we're going to talk more about that. So thank you everybody for putting some comments into the chat. I think that can give people new things to become aware of too, as sometimes we have the stress on ourselves that we're not really aware of. We don't have the words, but we know we feel it. So that can give people the words to really identify where the stress is coming from. So I appreciate everyone participating. So the good news is that we're going to talk about tools that we can use to address these stressors in our lives, especially during holidays, no matter what the source is. So on the surface, the time of year is supposed to be full of like joy and celebration, but a lot of times it can feel like the opposite. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And the biggest one is, and in my eyes, and as a therapist, is increased workload. This time of year, a lot of people are wanting more frequent appointments, and there's a lot of like preparation that goes into managing time off for holidays too. So you're kind of feeling like you have to get your work done ahead of the holidays, so that way you're not like coming back being behind from taking those days off. So the increased workload for many, it means not slowing down, but actually ramping up for unexpected obligations or unexpected events. And so it's really important that we realize that while we might be taking time off, our workload when we are working is probably increased. And then, as we mentioned in the chat, family obligations are a huge source of holiday stress. So it's navigating like family dynamics, managing the gatherings, like if you're hosting or if you're bringing food, bringing the gift buying, traveling, it all adds pressure together. And then if you're also coordinating like family pictures and outfits and matching pajamas, like all of those things kind of add to our stress and obligations. We also have the stress of the finances. So there's a lot of cost that comes in with buying gifts. We want to be good gifts givers. We want to do for others, and sometimes that can put a big strain on us. And it can also be a strain just hosting the events. It's a lot of money that goes into that, like decorations. You're looking at like appetizers, the dinner, the dessert, and it really kind of adds up very quickly. And then we also have time pressure. So we just feel like there's just not enough hours to get things done. I know a lot of parents can empathize with staying up late, either on Christmas Eve or right before a Christmas event, just to kind of get everything finally done or the final touches on things, because we do put a lot of stress on ourselves. But there's really also the deeper level of what's going on is that oftentimes we're approaching the holidays as this picture perfect ideal that we have in mind. And I like to call that like the expectation versus reality gap. So we want everything to be perfect, the decorations, the meals, the gifts, and the time spent with loved ones. But when things inevitably fall short of those expectations, it's going to really leave us feeling frustrated and disappointed or even burnout. And I laughed a little bit because someone in the comment had said, and the diet goes out the window. And that's absolutely valid. Like if we're eating healthy or we have a good nutrition plan in place, going to these events is kind of like we feel the added pressure of trying to eat healthy, but then balancing that with like, it is a special occasion. So it's really hard to kind of come to, what we're going to decide to do in that moment. And that's adding additional mental stress on us. And our bodies do not know the difference between mental stress and physical stress. It's all combined together. So, from your emergency preparedness that it does take a toll on our bodies. It does take a toll on our emotional health. So I just want to take a little bit of a pause to like remind you and remind myself as well that feeling stressed during the holidays is not a personal failure. It's normal and you're not alone in this experience. The key is recognizing it and then equipping yourself with the right tools to manage it effectively. So what does it do to our bodies and our minds when we're feeling this increased stress? So it impacts us in a variety of different ways. And understanding this connection is essential to recognizing when we're feeling overwhelmed and taking the steps to address it. So when we experience stress, our bodies actually go into fight or flight mode. And that is a natural survival mechanism, and it can be harmful when it's triggered frequently. So when it's triggered frequently, we're going to notice some physical symptoms that can be increased heart rate, blood pressure, muscle tension, especially like in our shoulders and in our necks. We get headaches and then stomach problems as well, along with feeling more fatigued or difficulty with sleep. So I'm sure you've probably experienced some of those symptoms during the holiday season. Usually, and I mean, sometimes too, like just feeling like overwhelmed and overstimulated. Like there's so much busyness and things going on, music and interactions. Like we can get to a point where we're overstimulated and we just need to take like a quiet break. And I know that I am very guilty of saying, I'm going to go to the bathroom and I'll be there for a while, but it's normally just to take some deep breaths and to kind of gather myself because I'm overstimulated by all of the happenings going on, especially like if there's lots of kids and they're having a great time, but they're really loud and they're like playing loudly, and it can be a little bit overwhelming for me at times. And I'm sure other people feel the same way too. So stress doesn't just affect our bodies, it does affect our mind. So when we have a lot of things on our plate, then we have a little bit of difficulty with focusing and making decisions. So we can have increased irritability, feeling overwhelmed. We could withdraw completely from some of the social situations or lose interest in things that you normally enjoy. Sometimes you'll see like people at holiday gatherings, like kind of like go into different areas of the house or the where you're having the event. Sometimes it's like more quiet in certain areas and it's more loud. And that is like some ways to kind of manage that stress. But some people will avoid these gatherings altogether. And if they previously enjoy going to gatherings, then I would say that's probably a sign that their stress is really high. We all work in high stress professions, so these effects can actually be magnified, so making it a little bit more important to address them proactively. I know some of the tips that I like to do is like I won't overbook myself during like the holiday season. Like I'll make sure like I'm taking the days off from work, but then I'm not overbooking my social calendar either. I'm giving myself more time to just rest because my body usually needs it around this time of year. So, left unchecked, our chronic stress can lead to really serious health conditions like high blood pressure, a weakened immune response or function, anxiety, depression. So, it's really critical that we manage the stress before it becomes overwhelming. Or if we start noticing that we're more stressed, then we're taking that time and being very mindful and deliberate and intentional with our time and what we're doing. So that way we can manage that stress as it's happening. And I think a lot of people do struggle with saying no to invites or like events. And I think that we have to really take into account, you know, how we're feeling and what's best for us in the long run. So there's a lot of different ways we can effectively manage our stress, and we're going to go into some practical ways of dealing with this. So we can manage our holiday stress with practical strategies so that way you can regain your balance and take care of yourself during a busy season. So the first step is really setting some realistic expectations for yourself and others. So acknowledging that things don't have to be perfect and you don't have to do everything. You can focus on what really matters to you, whether that's spending time with your loved ones, honoring a tradition, or just having some relaxing times to yourself. You really can just say and ask yourself, like, what can I let go of this season? What can I let go of this year? Maybe it's hosting a huge dinner or buying elaborate gifts for everybody. Like finding ways to simplify can be really liberating and reduce your stress load and your workload. And really like just setting like your realistic expectations, like we were talking a little bit earlier about, diet and nutrition. So, now would be the time, it's 1 week before Thanksgiving to really set like, what do I want my nutrition to look like that week? Like, what do I want to focus on? I know with some people that are kind of working on this or they're struggling with, a binge eating disorder or bulimia, and holidays can be incredibly triggering during those times. And I really, tell them like you don't want to, deny yourself really good food. It's really a good idea just to focus on like the whole healthy foods. Like the turkey is a great thing to eat. The green beans are really great to eat, like really whole foods like fruits and vegetables and lean meats. Those are great items to eat and still feel like you're indulging in Thanksgiving, but still trying to focus on eating lots of healthy foods. But other people might take a different stance. They might say, well, I'm going to take a specific plate or specific container and I'm going to do portions because I want to be able to enjoy everything. And I follow like the 80-20 mindset of 80% healthy of the time and 20% I can eat what I really enjoy. And so there's a variety of ways to do it, but having a plan ahead of time can really set you up to not feel any like guilt or shame afterwards. Because I think a lot of us have a habit of beating ourselves up when we slip up or we're not perfect or it doesn't meet our expectations. And that can be especially hard with food. But it also can happen with, you know, what does the table look like? Does everything look the way that it's supposed to? Like we put out so many different expectations on ourselves when we're engaging in holidays that, we just have this picture in our mind and it doesn't always look like that because life happens and we burn the turkey or something else goes wrong. Um, that's something that we have to try and be mindful of ahead of time and keep our like flexibility and be able to adapt and improvise as we go. So another way we can kind of reduce our stress is to look at our time management. So time is really limited. It's one of our limited resources in all of the areas of our life. And so if we can make like a holiday to-do list or a planner and then break those large tasks into smaller manageable steps, one of the things you can look at is like decorating. So that usually can be a big process if you have a lot of decorations, but breaking those across multiple days, like one day you do the lights, the next day you get the tree, the next day, you put the lights and decorate the tree, or there's lots of different ways you can do it. You can break it up so you don't feel like, okay, Thanksgiving is done. Now the next day we have to have all the Christmas decorations up. Like that's a unrealistic expectation for most of us, because we should probably get some rest in between Thanksgiving and decorating. So breaking those big tasks into smaller steps can be really helpful. And then prioritizing like what are the tasks that are the most important? What are the things that are, urgent and required? And what are some things that maybe I can let go of? And that is a good point. That if you didn't take down your lights from last year, then you're all set for this year. That's another way to manage it. And I think that's great. It's fine to celebrate all year long. We can all use that joy in our life, I think, to see the pretty lights. So that's another great suggestion. You can also set aside blocks of time for work, play, and rest, and just stick to them as much as possible. Like you don't want it to be all like do, and not rest and not do things that you enjoy, because that's going to increase your likelihood for burnout. And it would be a really shame that if you take time off of work to go be with your family and celebrate and find joy, that you spend it doing a different type of work and a lot more emotional labor than to just come back to work even more stressed or without any of that rest. So it is really, something to consider, that you want to balance in that rest during this time. And also, you don't have to do everything alone. Whether you're at work or whether you're at home, you can delegate the task to reduce your stress. And so that's something to really consider, is like, what can I ask someone else to do? So if you're someone who typically hosts the big dinner, then it might be a good idea to say, like, this year I'm having people bring dishes, so that way I don't have to be responsible for cooking everything, because that's overwhelming. And I know, at least in my family, we all have a habit, and myself included. I always make too much food. So delegating and giving it to other people isn't as risky, because I know there's going to be plenty. Because most of us want to make sure that we have leftovers afterwards to keep celebrating. While at work, when you're preparing for the holidays, make sure that you're sharing responsibilities with your team and you're communicating like your capacity, and communicating that in an honest way. So you want to make sure that you're looking at, what can I delegate? How can I tell people if I'm more stressed? Like, how can I, you know, um, ask for more assistance if I need it? And someone just made a great comment too, like, being mindful of people who aren't celebrating with family. So maybe you have a coworker who isn't celebrating with any family this year, and it might be something to like offer them extra support, or seeing what they need, or seeing if they have plans for the holidays to maybe include them if they would like to. And other people are going to be fine to be like, I just want to be alone with my candle and my book on my couch for the whole time, so I can relax and rest and not stress about anything. So I think it just depends on people's point of view and how they cope. Are they an extrovert? Are they an introvert? Some people are going to be wanting to go to those activities, and some people are just fine staying at home and relaxing because they might need it. So it's kind to offer. I definitely think that would be a really kind thing to do, but also people have different preferences as well. So it's really important to respect everyone, whether they celebrate or they don't celebrate, or they want to celebrate, or maybe they don't want to celebrate. So a lot of these different strategies can help us to reduce our stress, while also being, kind and caring to our coworkers and the folks in our community. So some of the self-care practices can be really looking at, like, how do you take care of your physical? How do you take care of your emotional? How do you take care of your mental well-being? And all of those like self-care strategies that we have a lot of times we feel like, well, I can't do these things because that would mean that I'm being selfish. And really that's not the case at all. Taking care of yourself so you can take care of other people and you can fulfill your obligations and your responsibility is never selfish. We have to kind of think back to that oxygen mask metaphor that we use a lot of times with self-care is that when you're on the plane, they always tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first so you can help as many people possible. And the same is true for this. We want to be able to take care of ourselves so we can care for other people. We give people the overfill of our cup by taking really good care of ourselves. So with physical care, during the holidays, it's super easy to neglect our bodies, but the small efforts can make a really big difference. So it might just mean like going for a 10-minute walk to boost your mood and energy. This time of year, we don't get a lot of sunlight, so it's really important to get as much as we can so we feel a little bit better. And then getting enough sleep. So aiming for 7 to 9 hours a night and avoiding our schedules being overloaded so we can have the rest that we need. Eating mindfully is the way we take care of our physical health. So making sure you're balancing the holiday treats with the nutritious food so that way we're nourishing our bodies without depriving them. And then taking care of your physical health so that way you can feel more resilient to stress overall. So that's still taking your medications, drinking enough water, really checking in with how your body's feeling. Some people might use the time off to then schedule appointments like for massages or for, acupressure, acupuncture. There's a lot of different things you can do to take care of yourself during this time. And another way is to just take care of your emotional health. So the holidays really stir up a lot of joy and nostalgia, and sometimes even sadness and grief as well, because a lot of times throughout our holidays look differently. And so we have to continually look at what we are, like our expectations are, what our memories are, and really kind of check in with ourselves on a regular basis. We want to kind of look at like what are about our boundaries going to be during this time? What am I going to say no to? And giving myself permission and knowing that it is okay to say no, because sometimes a lot of requests will feel overwhelming, especially if we're going through a hard time ourselves or we just feel like our plates are kind of full at the time. And we want to make sure that, we balance our rest time with our social time. So really prioritizing and thinking about like, who do you want to spend your time with the most? Like, who are the people who support you and uplift you? Because those are the people that you want to give the most time to, because as you're filling their cup, they're filling your cup as well. And it's a very reciprocal and rewarding relationship when we can stay connected to those types of people in our lives. And I also feel like, practicing gratitude is a great way to, care for our emotional health. We all have what's called a negative bias in our brains that we're just set up to on an evolutionary standpoint. And the negative bias means that we tend to see the world and our lives and ourselves very negatively. It has a little bit of a negative view. So practicing gratitude on a regular basis helps us to see things a little bit more accurately and more balanced. So that way we can be grateful for the things that we do have and the things that we do like that are happening in our lives or, within ourselves. And gratitude has been shown to improve mood and reduce stress. So as we kind of move away from our emotional health and moving into our mental health, we can use a lot of different strategies to calm our mental health. And one of the biggest ones that I like to practice is mindfulness. So that's just spending like a few minutes or even a few seconds each day, just being aware of what's happening right here, right now. And you can even expand that to doing like a few minutes of an actual mindfulness meditation where you're sitting very still and you're just noticing your breathing and you're just noticing what's around you. But I like to really incorporate and encourage others to incorporate mindful moments in their day to day. So, for example, whenever I wash my hands, I try to use that as a mindful moment to really feel the temperature of the water and how the water feels on my hands. And that just gives me a way to like ground myself And usually I do that in between my appointments or like when I'm cooking. So that way I can kind of get that bearing and feel the water again. And it does seem like it gives me a little bit of clarity and refocusing on being in the moment more. But you can do this when you're outside walking. Just notice like the wind and how it feels on your face. You can notice it if you take your shoes off and walk in the ground. And that's really a great grounding practice to help reduce stress. If you would like to walk barefoot in the grass, it does sound a little funny, but it does feel more like how we did in childhood a lot of times. And then mindfulness, there's a lot of different YouTube videos that you can find to practice mindfulness. If you feel like you need someone to do like a guided exercise, that's an easy way to just pull up on your phone. If you have to like run off to the bathroom for just a couple moments of peace, then you can do a mindfulness meditation in the bathroom with your phone. And taking breaks is a really good thing for your mental health. So stepping away from stressful situations, even if it's just for 5 minutes, can make a big difference. To just kind of give you that, fresh breath air, the deep breath that we kind of need to feel like we can continue with the social interactions. Because if you are an introvert or more introverted person, social interactions are going to be draining to you. While for people who are more extroverted, those social interactions are going to be more like engaging and exciting to you. It just kind of depends on your preferences and what you kind of the person that you are. But I do think that most of us have a social battery where we're kind of get tired and we're done and we want to go to sleep. So it's important to know that we really have to think about like what is our social battery? Like how full is it? Like how much do I have to give to social interactions? And being okay that it's sometimes it's really drained with the work that we do where we're, dealing with emergencies or crises, or we're dealing with, humans. A lot of times our social battery can be drained pretty quickly following a lot of work. So it's important to know, what that is and be mindful of it. And then making sure that you're engaging in things that you really love. Like if you have hobbies like crafting or reading or knitting or running or it can be anything, pickleball, I know that's really popular. A lot of things that whatever that you enjoy, that you're still doing those things during the holiday season in a way that, works for the weather conditions, because I know that can be kind of variable during this time of year. But you want to like really be mindful and intentional about scheduling those activities that you enjoy so that way you are prioritizing that and you're continuing to add moments of joy in your life. So the three good news is that like all of these ways that you are taking care of yourself are connected and they're going to help you reduce your stress and improve your well-being overall. So while I mentioned mindfulness, we're going to go to the next slide. And the next slide, we're going to really talk about and practice some breathing techniques so that we can use these at any point, at any time, whether that's in the grocery store when you're purchasing items for the holiday meal, or if you are just taking a break, or even washing dishes or serving food, like you can do these at any point. But if we can practice this intentional breathing, we can help reset our nervous system, and that helps us get to a more regulated state. And these breathing techniques really work because it's directly influencing your body's stress response. So the slow, deep breaths, they start activating what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. And that part of our nervous system is really where we have the rest and digest. And that is the complete opposite of our fight or flight response. So the fight or flight response increases your heart rate, while the rest and digest, it lowers your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure, and helps your muscle to relax. I like to think about our nervous system as like, if we think about it in the same kind of terms as a fever. So at baseline, we have homeostasis where we're regulated. We're just in this very like normal, active kind of state. And like if we think about it with our temperature, that's like 98.1. So when we get a fever, our body is stressed and it spikes up, and then we go into hyper arousal, and that's where we're in fight or flight. And just like when our fever spikes, it goes up higher and our body is more stressed. So then we don't actually return back down to baseline when we have a fever. And just like when our nervous system is activated, if we go into fight or flight, it means that we're going to kind of go crashing down and go into hypoarousal next, which is where we have like a freeze response. The freeze response is like where we literally don't want to do anything, and we can be in functional freeze where we're still getting our I our duties done, but maybe outside of our duties, we're like laying in bed all the time. So just like a fever, when it spikes up and it gets to be at a high point, it spikes back down and we start getting really cold until our bodies can regulate and get back into that regulated system. In that parasympathetic nervous system where we're very much like in this active, we're awake, we're resting, right, digesting, we're in a very like regulated state. So we want to make sure that we can keep our bodies in that area. So if we're starting to notice that we're going to fight or flight, we don't get ourselves so worked up that then we crash down into hypoarousal. So we'll first start off with box breathing. So this method is a great calming way to just calm your mind, and it's really kind of looking at like each step is like the side of a box. So we hold the same count for each. So if you kind of like think of it like you're going to go here, we're going to go here, we're going to go here, we're going to go here in order to make a box. So I've got the instructions on here and we're going to do it together. So we're going to inhale for 4 seconds through our nose for a count of 4, and then we'll hold the breath. So we're here inhaling, hold the breath for 4, we'll exhale, and then we'll hold again, and then we'll inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale. It kind of goes like that. So if we're going to breathe in through our nose, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to slowly let it go through our mouths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll hold again for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathe in for 4, and hold, and let it go, and then hold, and then inhale, and hold, and then exhale. And then that is just a really easy way to do it. And if you can kind of think of it as, again, the box, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, and you repeat until you feel like your kind of nervous system and the tension leaving your body. And you will feel it if you can keep that awareness of your body, like you'll start noticing, like you just feel a little bit less tension and you feel more calm. So you can do these as many times as you need. And obviously you can do them without saying it out loud. You could be doing it when no one really notices. And it can be done anywhere. The next type of breathing technique is the 4-7-8 breathing method. And it's really good for reducing anxiety and helping to relax. So for this one, we're going to inhale again through our nose and for a count of 4, but instead we're going to hold it for 7, and then we're going to exhale with our mouth for a count of 8. So while you're, noticing that an extended exhale for 8 seconds, I want you to just keep your awareness on your body and just notice if you have any release of tension, because this kind of method is going to increase your ability to relax as well. So slowing our breathing down and really focusing on it can be a good mindful technique as well. So we'll start with inhaling for 4. So breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to hold it for 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and let it go through your mouth for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're going to breathe back in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're going to let it go out of our mouth for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the longer you can make your exhale last, the more relaxation that you're going to feel. And then another way to kind of guide your breathing this is just a really simple one to make sure that you're actually breathing out and making your belly move when you're breathing. because that is one of the things that people will do when I'm teaching deep breathing is that they just put it up in their lungs and their bellies are not moving in or out. So sometimes with little kids, I'll call this belly breathing. And then for older folks and adults, I'll call it a diaphragmatic breathing. So we want to really look at, how we can reduce the shallow chest breathing and then really like increase our diaphragmatic breathing. So the shallow chest breathing is actually gonna, if we're just up in our chest and we're going really fast, that's going to lead to hyperventilation, and that's going to increase our stress and put us into fight or flight. While we kind of go to a different route for this, if we want to relax our bodies, then we are going to need to be breathing in and out of our stomach and not in our chest. So this can help our nervous system regulate the more that we're in our belly and not in the chest. So we're going to be keeping in that parasympathetic nervous system. So you place one hand on your chest and then another hand on your stomach, just below your rib cage. And if you want to close your eyes, you can, or you can keep them open, or you can just lower your gaze, either way. And what you're going to do is you're going to take slow, deep breaths in through your nose, and then you're going to focus that breath down into your stomach. So we can take a deep breath. And you should be feeling your hand on your stomach rise as your belly expands. And then the hand on your chest should remain relatively still. And then you'll slowly exhale through your mouth, letting your belly fall as you release the air. So, and really that's going to be a way to kind of keep that awareness on on your body. So that way you're giving your brain two different tasks here. You're giving your brain the focus of the breathing, of breathing in and pushing the air down to your stomach. And then you're also giving your brain the task of monitoring your hands and the other parts of your body, so your chest and your stomach. So the more we can give our brain things to focus on at one time, it has a reduced ability to have other things come to mind. So when you're really focused on this, that's why your mind kind of clears, because it's not focusing on all your to-do list anymore. So yeah, that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. If you don't give your brain something to focus on, it will find a random thing to focus on. And so that's why I kind of like to teach people that our brain is a lot like a puppy that we have to train. So we have to give our puppy, our brain, something to do and something to focus on. Otherwise, like you just go in random places if you've ever had that. And suddenly you're daydreaming and suddenly you're doing this and you're doing that and you're all over the place. So this is why this is a really great mindfulness exercise, is because you're giving your brain something intentional to focus on that also regulates your body. It increases your awareness of your body and how you're feeling inside your body. Because our body is going to be the first indication of how we're feeling if we can pay attention to it. Our bodies will pick up on any feelings of discomfort, any, illness, anything really, if we can give it the attention that it deserves, because our bodies are very smart, but oftentimes we're all too stuck in our head to notice. So by doing these activities, we're really increasing our body and mind connection. And so I think that's something that we can all work on continuously, and it regulates our nervous system and reduces our stress. So I just wanted to touch on a few more key things of reducing and managing your stress during our work around the holidays. So it's really joyful, it's really demanding, and it's really important to prioritize and have a plan. So look at your workload, identify your critical tasks, and tackle these first. So that way your deadlines are taken care of, they're met, and you don't have to hesitate in delegating when possible. Because maybe you have a list of 10 or 20 things that all have deadlines around the holidays. And you'll have to really look at, like, is this really feasible for me to get all these done? Or do I need to talk to a supervisor? Do I need to talk to my colleagues about how we can divide and conquer some of these things? And then really come down to communicate clearly. A lot of times when I'm working with employers or employees, I really stress the importance of like being very specific in what you are looking to accomplish. What are the expectations of the task? How is it being divided? Who's in charge of what? What are the timelines? What is the due date? really like looking at all these specific details, because sometimes I feel like we're giving these tasks and we're really not sure when the deadline is or what needs to be done and what needs to be prioritized. So really like getting that information so you can make informed decisions can reduce your stress overall. And it just, thinking about last minute surprises, we don't really want those. So if we can have less last minute surprises and less, conflicts with our task and responsibilities, that does save us some stress overall. And really don't underestimate the power of taking breaks. So we really need to like incorporate some of these mindfulness techniques, some of these breathing exercises in our day-to-day work lives, because it does help us get through the day. It helps us to rest our mind and just give our bodies that little break. So if you get like a 10-minute break, if you finish something early, sometimes it's a really good idea to just go and walk around the block real quick, just to get some fresh air if that's possible, or going to some place where it's just outdoors, where you can just feel like the cold air, because that can be very regulating to our nervous system, the cold. Um, and so it's something that we can just be mindful of and be very intentional in doing. And also setting boundaries. So learning how to say no to extra commitments. If you're supposed to bring, or supposed to be decorating like a door decorating contest, sometimes there's some things we do in the offices, and really kind of saying like, how can I make this as simple as possible? And really kind of reduce my stress on this if I'm going to participate, or maybe I decide I'm not going to participate this year. Um, maybe you could find something clever to do instead of making a full door decoration. I think people can be really creative if given the space to do so. So really just knowing that and being aware that holidays are about balance and our lives are about balance. So we have to prioritize our self-care along with our work and responsibilities so that way we can maintain the productivity that we need to, but also carry with along that a lot of peace of mind. So managing stress isn't about doing it all, but it is about doing what matters the most and preserving your physical and your mental health. And that really includes cultivating a lot of joy, even when you're hustled, even when you're stressed, whether that's with work or with the holidays. So finding small ways to bring more balance and positivity into your life. It might be that you're going to savor those small moments. It could be enjoying like a small or quiet cup of coffee. It could be listening to a favorite song, spending a few moments in nature. All of these things are going to help ground you and give you that needed pause during a really busy time. And then practice gratitude. Sometimes it's really nice to do like your gratitude practice within your holiday cards if you want to give holiday cards, or maybe you if you don't do holiday cards, you could do like a little gratitude note to people in your office or the people in your lives, just to say thanks for being a part of my life, and maybe mentioning some of the things that they contribute that you really appreciate. Because not only will that give you a sense of joy and gratefulness, but it will also be really impactful and meaningful to the person who's receiving it. And all of that is free, unless you want to count the cost of the paper and the pen to give to the person, or maybe a stamp or two. But those simple things can really foster your connections with other people in a very meaningful way. And it also enhances your level of contentment with your life. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, then I think then a simple gratitude journal is just as effective. Just writing down, bringing to your attention and bringing your mind and giving that mind something to do, which is to focus on the things that you are grateful for. I think that we can definitely balance that with the things that we want more of in our life. So, for example, if you have a hard time with gratitude, then I would say, like, let's focus on what do you want to cultivate this coming year? Like, what do you want to increase? What do you want to have more of? Because again, we're training our brain to look for those things. And another bias that our brain has is called the confirmation bias. So if you say, I have nothing to be grateful for, and I have nothing, and I'm not very happy at all, then your brain is going to be like, you're right, let's find more of that. And it'll give you all the evidence that you need to make that true with our confirmation bias. But if you are in your journal and you're saying, like, I'm just going to say, like, the things I want more of in my life, then your brain's going to take note of that, what you're writing down, and it's going to be like, you got it. We'll find more of that. And it's going to collect more evidence to make that true. So we can use these biases to our advantage. And the confirmation bias is one that we can definitely tap into to tell our brains what we want to see more of in our life, and then make that a reality through our actions that are more subconscious, or it can be giving us the opportunity to see the things that are already in our reality and are already there that maybe we are overlooking. The great example for confirmation bias is when you're buying a car and you're like, I want this blue, specific model and specific type of vehicle with this specific thing. And your brain will then know that you're looking into buying something like that. And then you start seeing them like everywhere you go. You're like, oh, there's that blue car, and there's that blue car, and that's that one. But your brain's like giving you the important information because in our day-to-day lives, there is a ton of data and information in front of us that our brain filters out because it doesn't feel like it's important or necessary, so we don't perceive it, even though it is in front of us. So by doing that activity of the journal of what you want more of in your life, you're giving your brain the information to say, show me where this exists, and you will see it more. So that's another kind of way to kind of tap into that as well. And then really making sure that we're keeping our realistic expectations at the forefront of all of this. It doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of times, even if things go wrong, they make great memories that people they look back on in the future, and they really kind of like say, like, I'm really happy that maybe this didn't go the way that I wanted to, that it wasn't perfect, because that's really real life and human. And I think if we're going into things with this, perfection mindset, one, it's stressful, and two, is really setting us up for failure because we're not always going to be perfect. Things are going to go wrong. Things don't happen the way we want them to. And I think that we have to really embrace our imperfections and then find a little bit of humor and resilience and adaptability in those things that are very unexpected at times. Because like I said, sometimes those can create really good memories, even though in the moment we don't like that they're happening. So by intentionally weaving a lot of joy into your days, that you can really reduce stress and then also have a really fulfilling experience as well. So I want to wrap up today's session. So it's important that you know that support is available if you're feeling overwhelmed during the holidays. So stress, anxiety, emotional burnout, all of that can be tough to manage on your own, but there are a lot of resources to help. So some of those resources are like the Virginia Mental Health Crisis Hotline. That's listed on here, as well as the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's really good to remember, just 8988. So something that you can easily share with the people and utilize yourself if you need to. The Employee Assistance Program, or an EAP, which is basically a lot of workplaces will offer an EAP, and that gives you like a limited amount of free counseling sessions through your insurance or through another plan. And you can ask HR on how to access that. And sometimes it's 4 free sessions and sometimes it's 5, and then you can roll over and then start using your benefits for your insurance. But some employers have that as well. If you're looking for more books to read, I really recommend Brene Brown. I listed Rising Strong, but she also has the book called The Gift of Imperfection, and that's an excellent book to kind of keep in mind. And I think I have it. I do. Oh, The Gifts of Imperfection. It's like super easy to read. It's not a big read, but it really has a lot of information. It's a good reminder that actually our imperfection is our strength. So I like that one as well. Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. I forgot a CE in my success, I think, or maybe I did do it right. Okay. That's by Carol Dweck. And that's a great book. I've done presentations for other employers just on that book alone, and about having a mindset and how we can use our mindset and these built-in capabilities in our brain to foster our success. And then the other one I really recommend is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. It's really like taking a stance of like, what are our obstacles? What are the bad things that happen in our life, and how we can make those into the way forward, even though it seems really devastating at the time. Like, how can we utilize this for our resilience and our growth and our goals for what we want reality in our life to look like in the future? So Those are the three books I definitely recommend. And then there's also apps like Calm and Headspace that offer meditations, but you can find those for free on YouTube as well. There's a lot of good resources out there. So just remember that reaching out is a sign of strength and that there's lots of different ways to receive support, whether that's talking with a therapist or using a helpline or using the relaxation tools that we discussed today. You don't have to navigate stress or your mental health alone. There are people who want to help you, and there's a lot of resources out there. So if it doesn't look exactly like you thought it would, or maybe how other people have said that support looks like, it's okay to make your own toolbox. And I really encourage people to have like either a physical like bag or a toolbox that they want to put things in that help them feel less stress, whether that's like um, those little stress balls or mints or ice packs to put on the back of your neck to calm your nervous system. There's a lot of different things you can find that can be helpful for you. Um, and sometimes I'll even say, like, I'll put breathing techniques on note cards and put it in the bag or put it in the toolbox. That way, you have a physical thing to remind you of what to do when you're feeling really stressed. And so it can be helpful to have that as well. So I do want to say just thank you so much for being here today and engaging in this conversation and about managing your holiday stress. So we discussed a lot of ways that we can not only survive, but then thrive during the holiday season, from prioritizing our tasks to practicing the stress relief techniques like deep breathing or mindfulness. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a little final thought that stress is inevitable, but how we respond to it is within our control, and that the holidays might bring some extra pressures, but taking some proactive steps like setting realistic expectations, creating boundaries, and making time for joy can manage that stress and make you feel a little bit more calmer and more manageable. So I do want to take a little bit of time. We've got 8 minutes before the 11 o'clock hour to open up the floor if you have any questions, or if you think if like there's a specific technique or you want more clarity on or personal experience you want to share, just let me know what questions you all have.